Now, our speaker today is one of two programs that we had on land use. The other one was land use in Western New York. This is much closer to home, being in Kennett. So John Gatt is an environmental and land use planner who has over 35 years of professional experience in that field. He's licensed through the American Institute of Certified Planners and is a member of the American Planning Association and the American Water Resources Association. John currently serves as chairman of the Kennett Area Park Authority. He's also president of the E. Neil Dockstader Foundation, which provides grants for environmental preservation activities in southern Chester County. He comes to us today to talk about the Anson B. Nixon Park, which is located in Kennett Square. The park contains 110 acres of woodland, 2 ponds, a 3-mile hiking trail, a dog park, a picnic area, restrooms, and a stage for different performances that might be held there. The park is owned and operated by the only independent municipal authority in the state of Pennsylvania. And he'll explain to you how that affects fundraising. As you entered, I hope you picked up this flyer about the park, and I want to point out that if you want further information about it, just focus your cell phone on the QR code there. You all know how to work a QR code from dining. We've learned them. So I'm going to turn things over to John. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mickey. Thank you for having me. This is, for people like me that work in an environmental field, this is an exciting time of the year. I mean, we have Earth Day last week, Earth Week, Earth Month here with the Green Team. You guys are doing some amazing things, but for somebody like me, it allows me professionally to focus on planet Earth. And to be honest with you, right now, we're not focusing enough on planet Earth. So I was asked to talk about sort of some local initiatives. Kennett Square and Anson B. Nixon Park are about 10 miles south on Route 1, so you're close, but not that close. But if you've ever been to Kennett Square, you may be familiar with the park. There are 6 walking paths from the borough and the township that go into the park, so it's very pedestrian friendly. The idea was to provide both to Kennett Square Borough and Kennett Township readily, easily accessible open space and recreation. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, and I appreciate your being here. Okay. There we go. Okay. As Mickey said, we're just over 110 acres. We actually opened in 1993. The Kennett Area Park Authority was formed in the late 80s. And how we came into being was that there was some open space at the confluence of the Red Clay Creek and a tributary just outside of Kennett Square Borough. The land exists both in Kennett Township and Kennett Square Borough. And if you're familiar with Pennsylvania, we're all about townships and boroughs, and that's where the Land Use Authority lies. The counties are advisory in Pennsylvania. They don't control land use. And of course, we have the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that oversees all of us. But anyway, back in the late 80s, there was this land outside the borough and the township that actually contained a small landfill. And the landfill was going to be decommissioned, and there was the thought that we should do something with that land. It's in a great location, close to the borough, within the township. What can we do with that land and the land around it? So let me go back if I can. Okay. Right in this diagram, this aerial of the park, you see the active recreation facilities, tennis courts, basketball courts, volleyball courts, right in this center area with some parking. The area all around this, though, contains the two ponds Mickey mentioned right up in here, the Red Clay Creek right over here, and a tributary that comes down on this side. So the vast majority of the park is actually open space, and it's kept in a natural state. There are trails in there, and I think there are actually more than 3 miles of trails. There's actually a lot of trails in the park. And it's been our goal since the founding of the park to provide both open space, natural, passive recreation, and active recreation. So what I wanted to just emphasize here is that there's a lot of open land still in the park. The idea with the landfill was to say, well, what can we do? Can we cap that once it's decommissioned? Can we do anything with that? And if you've read anything about landfills and what the afterlife for landfills is, a lot of them become ball fields or hiking trails or native areas, natural areas. So that's what we decided to do. The northeast quadrant of the park are now soccer fields and football fields for the local community, and we have the local clubs and organizations use those. The landfill was capped. It was planted with grass. It does subside naturally over a short period of time, and we go in and renovate that and fill that subsidence. But it's become a great asset to the community. And that sort of started the genesis of the local community thinking, well, how can we use this land, not only the landfill land that's capped, but the land surrounding that land immediately adjacent to the borough. And that's when the Kennett Area Park Authority was formed. So we're an independent municipal authority. I said we were established in the late 80s, 1988. We actually own and operate the park. We're a unique entity. We're the only municipal authority in Pennsylvania that runs a park. If you think of municipal authorities almost anywhere in the United States, they mostly manage water facilities or sewage facilities or things like that. It's sort of a fee-for-service type of entity. We provide open space. We provide recreation. Unfortunately, we do not have any taxing authority. So we are entirely supported by donations and grants. It's kind of a unique model in Pennsylvania. So I'm going to move forward and come back to that last slide. So we have a unique funding model. It's very different. We have no per capita tax-based funding. We get a third of our funding from the township, Kennett Township, and a third total from the township and Kennett Square Borough. So the remainder of that money has to come from somewhere else. We do have, if you're familiar with Kennett, there's a large water reservoir facility, a large tank in the township as you drive in, and it says mushroom capital of the world on it, on the water facility. On top of that, there are cell phone towers, and because that land exists in the park, not in the borough, they share the revenue from that with the park. So we get a little of that. But the rest of the money comes from donations and grants. So everything we do in the park, we either have to raise the funds for it, or we have to get a grant to do the work we do. So then I'm going to go back. Whoops, sorry. one of the things we did in the last couple years was form a friends group. And it's a 501c3, a nonprofit funding organization. And what that organization does is raise funds primarily for the maintenance of the park, for park improvements, and for an endowment for the future stability of the park. And that was just an organization founded recently. Let's see. Oops, sorry about that. I'm going the wrong way. So we have accomplished quite a bit in the last 5 to 10 years, actually, in the park. We actually funded over $500,000 in capital improvements. We upgraded a pole barn on the property, which is actually used as an outdoor-indoor classroom to teach about environmental issues and gardening. Oops. We, in conjunction with other nonprofits in the area, we're developing a regional trail network which basically surrounds Kennett Square in the larger community to provide greater access for pedestrians into the borough, but also into the park. And so one of the things we wanted to do is provide, handicapped accessible paved walkways in a part of the park to link up to the borough. So we accomplished that. We put a new playground in. We put a Serenity Garden in. A lot of people were curious about, we have a lot of open space, but is there a place we could develop for people to just come, bring a chair, sit, have peace and quiet, look at the stream, and contemplate? And so we recently installed that. We did put a new entranceway into the park. The old entrance into the park from the late 80s was at a curve in the road on Walnut Street that was very difficult to maneuver, not safe. Can you hear me? Yeah. It was not safe. And we put a new entranceway in, and then we added a dog park. If you're not familiar with those, they're very popular today. Dogs of all stripes come to dog parks, and they love it. They absolutely love it. So, sticking with the Earth Week theme, Earth Month theme, I wanted to talk about some of the initiatives we've had going in the park, now that you know a little about the park itself. We really have a legacy of sustainability in the park, and the projects that we've undertaken are all with that in mind: sustainable growth, sustainable practices. How do we deal with the streams on the site? How do we deal with the natural areas? We undertook a comprehensive plan about 12 years ago, and ever since then we've been implementing that plan, and we've almost implemented the entire plan. But one of the things we did recently was what's called a stream restoration and riparian buffer planting on the Red Clay Creek and a tributary that runs through the park. And I'm going to spend a little time talking about that. And I mentioned improved accessibility, and I'll talk a little more about that as well. I wanted to talk about stream restoration because this is a significant environmental issue that we're all dealing with as a society. When we develop land, what happens? We put hard surfaces, impervious coverage on that land. What happens to the water? It runs off of that land. When we get rain, essentially three things happen. It either evapotranspires, it evaporates, it transpires from the plants, it runs off, or it infiltrates into the ground. And what we're seeing today with increased development is a lot more runoff. Now, what we do societally with that runoff, and I work with a lot of other engineers and planners on this issue, is we try to hold that runoff and release it slowly so we deal with this large rate of water that's coming off the impervious surfaces. But the problem with just doing that is it doesn't address the volume of that water that has to end up going somewhere over some period of time. And what happens over time is we may be releasing it slowly, but everything upstream is releasing slowly, and you get higher volumes of water in your streams that can affect the downstream communities. When you think about Kennett Square, it's really downstream of a lot of development on the Red Clay Creek that's north of Kennett Square. So what we were seeing was this photograph is in the park before we did the stream restoration, getting a lot of bank erosion. And that disconnects the floodplain, because when you get erosion like that, the floodplain on the other side gets larger, and you've lost the floodplain on this side of the stream. So you're not managing your water very well. And because there was a lack of riparian buffer are basically plants that are appropriate along streams that live and prosper in wet conditions. And when you have those plants there, they help manage the stream bank. They help prevent erosion. So when you're missing that vegetation, and when you're seeing a lot of flood or a lot of water coming down, and you get these kind of conditions, we started to see a real problem in the park. It was undermining some of our trails. And we also saw a significant challenge for the borough that was going to come, because, as I mentioned before, the Red Clay Creek and a tributary meet in the park and go right through the borough. So it's the confluence. Right at the bottom of the park is the confluence of that tributary and that stream, and then they go right into the borough. So how we manage what's going on upstream largely affects what's going to happen in the borough of Kennett. So what we tried to do was address this issue in the park. We knew that there were ways we could address this that would improve the way the streams function, protect habitat, reconnect the floodplain again, improve both the look and feel of the streams in the park, protect our trails, and make for an overall better community. So the approach is to apply what's called fluvial geomorphology, and that's basically how streams function. And you look at how the streams function, you model how the stream functions, you look at the natural ebb and flow and the way the streams wind, and you come up with a strategy for addressing the problem that's developed over time. And the goal is to restore a stable stream channel so you don't get this kind of issue. So what are the benefits? And I mentioned a few, but sure, it stabilizes those eroded stream banks. It reduces sediment, phosphorus, and nitrogen pollution, because what are we seeing from farm fields and even from residential areas? We're seeing, a lot of fertilizers, and that comes from both, residential areas and farm areas. And when you put those kinds of nutrients into your stream, what happens? It causes algal growth. The algal growth cuts off the oxygen. It absorbs the oxygen in the stream, and that's when you have fish kills. So it negatively affects the stream habitat and the biodiversity of your community. So that's one of the issues we're trying to address as well. I say here it helps municipalities meet their MS4 pollution reduction plans. That's a fancy way of saying that the federal government said that communities need to deal with stormwater management. And they told the state that you need to monitor this and you need to tell the municipalities what to do, and the state told us, the municipalities, what they need to do. And in order to accomplish the goals of the federal government, there are certain things that each municipality has to do to reduce the impact of non-point source pollution, it's called. And the MS4 program is the federal government's way of trying to deal with this issue. So if we can address this issue in the park, it actually helps the township and the borough address that issue in terms of them being a regulated municipality to the state. I hope that answers that. I can elaborate some more on that. But as I said, when you have a problem with nutrients in your stream, you can affect the fish and wildlife habitat, so this would improve it. Certainly there's an aesthetic impact. When you see an eroded bank and you see that where you're walking could be compromised, that's concerning. So just some of the methods that we used in the park. You grade the stream banks on a 4-to-1 slope. So you take that eroded channel that you saw in that first photograph and you grade that back so that you can recapture the floodplain on both sides of the stream. And you do it in a way which can redirect the center of the channel but actually help manage the stream bed itself. And by doing this, you create pools for habitat, and you can use different types of structures. They call them rock veins and different types of structures within the stream to create little pools for wildlife and fish to be able to have habitat. So you're actually engineering a way to improve the stream, but also the habitat. You protect the banks where there is infrastructure. In our case, the infrastructure was both a sewer line going underneath the Red Clay Creek and our trails, which are along the creek itself. We enhanced the riparian buffer, so we did a lot of stream planting, and I think I have a slide of that. And you know, we planted that buffer within 35 feet of the stream itself. So I just wanted to, this is not an easy undertaking. We started this over 5 years ago, and we just finished about a year ago. It's probably 3 years from start to finish. You know, we need to identify what the project is. We needed to fundraise. We were able to get grants from the state of Pennsylvania because they value this approach as a way of dealing with this kind of issue. And so there are grant programs of the state. We raised private funds, we got grant funding, we got funding from the municipality, from the township and the borough, because if we weren't going to solve this problem, they would have had to under state law, and we were really doing them a favor. So between the grant money and the money we were able to get from private entities, we actually saved them money and helped them in the long run. But then you have to bid the project, and you have a construction period. And we have to inspect this on an annual basis. We have to maintain it. And there's actually a 20-year landowner agreement because we want to make sure that we're actually achieving something here. And we're the landowner, so we have to make sure we know what we're doing. So our role in the stream restoration was really to facilitate the whole process, to really communicate to the community. I was going to say sell to the community, but in essence that is what it is, to communicate to the community what it is we're doing and why. Because if you've ever gone to a park and you see your stream torn up, you're like, oh my God, what are they doing in Kennett Square? They're ruining our park. So we had big posters placed all over the park, actually big poster boards. This is what we're doing. We're doing a stream restoration. This is why we're doing it, and this is how it's going to help the community. And then we had to, again, because we're a small entity, but we serve a fairly large population, we have to do a lot of our work through cooperative ventures with other nonprofits. So I mentioned before, there's the Kennett Trails Alliance we work with on the trails. In this case, we worked with an organization called the Brandywine Red Clay Alliance. It's a local watershed organization. And together, we were able to seek funding, hire the contractors to do this work. So, with the township and the borough, the Brandywine Red Clay Alliance, ourselves, we found the partnership opportunities we needed to accomplish these goals right here. So we restored the stream and we stabilized the bank. We protected our open space and our trails. We were able to parlay some of the money we got to do some work outside of the park as well in the borough at no cost to the borough, so it actually helped the borough downstream of the park. We've been able to get what they call credits for the township and borough that meets their obligations under the federal government's requirements. So to me, it was kind of a win-win-win. The township and borough really got something from this, and we were able to improve the park and improve the natural environment of the park. So I wanted to, I'm going to do, having talked about all this, I'm going to do a shameless plug now, because I am sort of at the end of my term as chairman. They want me to stay on, but I'm not sure I'm going to do that. It's a lot of work. But this is the last piece of the puzzle in terms of the master plan we did for the park. The borough of Kennett Square has a rich history with what's called the waterworks here. This was the original water supply for the borough of Kennett Square, and it took water from the Red Clay Creek, treated it, and it was the potable water for the borough. This building in the back here was what's called a settling basin. That's where the water came in and settled out the solids. Then the water was moved over to this building here where it was treated. So it was treated, with chlorine, things like that. And then the water went over to this building, which is the pump house, and it was pumped into the borough. These buildings have been around for a while. These buildings, and in an earlier form, supplied the water to the borough between the late 1800s and really 1984. So it's been fairly recent overall that the borough moved to other types of another type of water supply. But the buildings are in need of urgent restoration, and they're in the park. They're in the center of the park. So we had an opportunity here to do something useful with these buildings. And we could either tear them down, which we didn't want to do, or we could do what we call adaptive reuse of these buildings, where we change their use to be something of value to the community. And that's what we chose to do, and that's what we're working on right now. Here's the history here, really, in a nutshell. The buildings in the late 1800s were developed on this site right outside of the borough, down here, and that's where the buildings are. The system was phased out, I mentioned, for modern infrastructure. But these historic buildings are kind of a link to the park's past, but also a link to the borough and the township's past. This was the central water supply historically for the community. And what we want to do is really, as I say here, revitalize this as a community gathering space. So we started a campaign called Revive, Refresh, Renew. This is sort of an overhead of what we plan to do on the site. We want this to be a community hub. It'd be nice if there were a pub there, wouldn't it? Maybe that's how we raise some money for this project. Community hub. We want to have flexible event spaces. I mentioned earlier that we've started some gardening and environmental education classes. Those would take place in this building, indoor-outdoor classroom. We wanted to have an open-air plaza to link these buildings together for the community. And quite frankly, it would be nice if we had a place to meet. Right now, we meet at the borough building when we can and they don't have something else going on, or we meet in the park. So we don't have any dedicated space for our staff or, in order to have meetings at all. So we decided, well, in addition to having bathrooms and an exhibition space, why don't we have a boardroom for ourselves as well? Now, the exhibit space here, exhibition space, is actually to educate people about the history of the waterworks buildings. And in this building here, I mentioned this is the pump house. You've got all the pumps, all the gauges, all the dials in there that are in really good shape. And it's 2 floors, and it's open. And we're thinking this would be an ideal place, to educate people about, the municipal waterworks, how they functioned, what they did for the community. And so we want to, when we say adaptively reuse it, we want to recognize and be able to interpret the history and the value of these buildings over time. So there's what it's going to cost us. We hired an architect. We've been looking at this, and we've been fundraising for about a year and a half. We're actually, we've been doing what they call the silent fundraising, and we're going to have a public event at the end of June to actually kick off the public phase of the funding for this project. So we're looking at a little over $5 million just to actually do this, and then we're going to need some endowment funds to help maintain these things over time. So that was my shameless plug. I appreciate your hearing me out. But when it comes to the park overall, I wanted to share what our core values are for the park, and to educate. With these facilities, we really want to provide educational opportunities for families in the community, and we want to preserve the history of these buildings. We want to provide a safe and fun space, of course, but we want to, enhance community well-being. And coincidentally, when I talk about that plaza in the back and some of those buildings, they can be adapted for use for special events, and we can hold fundraisers there. People could rent that space, and that would allow us a stream of income to pay for all of this. So it's all about sort of a robust funding model as well for how we're going to do this and how we're going to pay for it. So if you're at all interested, I know we're about 10 miles away, but we are the local speaker, I think, this time around, right? Yeah. We're about 10 miles away in Kennett Square Borough. The flyer that I prepared for you all to take a look at has the UR code on it. If you're interested and want to get involved, you can volunteer. You can actually join the capital campaign and make a donation. And with that, I am happy to take questions. And thank you for having me. Yes, ma'am.
You have to wait for me to get up. Okay. It takes a while.
Thank you, Mickey. Some very basic questions. Number one, where exactly is this park located? And what are the hours that it is opened?
Okay, dawn to dusk, like most parks. If you're coming into Kennett Square Borough, the simplest way is to turn when you're there's a big hill as you're coming into the borough, and on the right-hand side is Walnut Street. And it's right before you enter the main part of the borough. You turn right on Walnut Street. That wraps around, brings you right to the entrance to the park.
Okay, great. And one of the maps that you had shown us had the names of certain people on it. What do their names represent? Are they landowners?
They were the historic landowners of that land at the beginning, in the middle of the 1800s, when the waterworks buildings were actually put in place. That's who owned the land surrounding the park.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Hi, I have two questions. One is about the restoration of the stream.
Mm-hmm.
How does that relate to upstream and downstream movement of the Red Clay Creek?
Right.
Because this is only a small section. And the other question is, how widely is the park used? How many visitors do you have in a year, in a month, or whatever? And where do they come from? Is it mostly from the borough or also from other places?
Two very good questions. Let me address your second one first, if I can. We get attendance of about 55,000 people a year at the park, so it's pretty good attendance. And if you go there on any day, the parking lots are full. We service Kennett Square Borough and Kennett Township, but I mean that's officially on the records who we're servicing. But East Marlboro Township and all the other Wilmington, Delaware, Newcastle County, Delaware, all the surrounding municipalities actually utilize the park. We have a championship disc golf course in the park, and it attracts a lot of people. And it's very well known. It actually, I mean, I hate to boast, but it was actually ranked as the best disc golf course in the state of Pennsylvania a couple years ago. So we do attract a lot of people. In terms of the stream restoration, yes, they're costly. You can do one segment at a time. Fortunately, the organization I mentioned, the Brandywine Red Clay Alliance, is working downstream and upstream. The money we were able to set aside that we didn't need in the park actually helped the borough just below the park's property. And then the Brandywine Red Clay Alliance is working with the Kennett Square Country Club to help them do the same thing that we did in the park. And so it's a slow process, but if you can basically work up and down the stream, that really makes a huge difference. And that's what we've been doing.
So was Anson B. Nixon one of the landowners, and how did you pick his name?
It's a good question. Anson B. Nixon was one of the local community members. He had been a township supervisor. He worked, he was one of the board members with the Southeast Chester County Refuse Authority. He was instrumental in saying, we need to do something with this land once the landfill closes. And he was heavily engaged in that whole process, and they named the park in his honor. Oops.
I just thought you might be interested to know that I lived in Wilmington, North Wilmington,
Yeah.
and did make use of this park, which is a beautiful park. The Wilmington Trail Club would frequently have hikes there, which was really nice.
Yep.
And the other thing that I loved about that park, or love about the park, is they have, in the summer, there are wonderful free evening concerts that are really wonderful family gathering places, and just a wonderful entertainment.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, we have a lot of great programming in the park. We do have a summer concert series held every Thursday night in the summers. We have a special concert in the fall. We hold what's called a trout rodeo in the ponds. We stock them, and every year we have youngsters come out and learn how to fish and catch trout. So among all the programs, I mentioned something about the education, gardening, and nature education. A teacher that retired from Kennett High School was involved in their environmental education program, is now teaching classes with us through the park. So we're really, it's all about being engaged in the community and trying to provide a useful service. Yes, sir.
Yeah, people in Kennett are certainly fortunate. Now in Concord, we have the Newland Mill Park, and that's private. We have a community park, but I wonder what's happened to the plan to convert the rail line into trails. It was supposed to run from Wegmans, I guess almost down to Concord Road, and I cross that, a few times a week, and it's still grown up, and I think that should have been done years ago. Do you know anything about it?
I don't, unfortunately. Yeah. There's a lot of trails planning going on. One of the, on the north quadrant of the park, the very northern border is Route 1. And we've actually been working with the state of Pennsylvania, PennDOT, because they want to put a trail in along Route 1, leading up along Route 1 into Kennett Square, into the park. So there's some activity going on, but sometimes it's just a slow process. The money has to be raised, and then the construction itself can take years. So that might be what's going on.
I noticed there's some construction in Chad's Ford parallel to Baltimore Pike. I don't know whether that's a trail or what, but
most of that I think is drainage improvements along Route 1. Is that what you're referring? Along Route 1, is it?
Well, it looks like a trail near the.
Oh, I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Down by the Brandywine River Museum.
Yeah,
Yes.
before you get there.
There is a new trail there. It's not open yet. I noticed that they have quite a lengthy boardwalk and a couple of bridges. It's closed right now. I don't know when that's going to open, but I think that's an interesting connection there. Yeah.
It runs from the museum to the township offices.
Okay. Okay.
Right here.
Yes, sir.
Are the trails suitable for walkers, the handicap walkers or rollators?
Yes, that one of the things we tried to do was improve some of the trails to make them more accessible for handicap. And so there are handicapped accessible facilities in the park now.
Right. And apart from the dog park, dogs are allowed to be brought in?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
You bet.
Anyone else? Thank you so much, John. That was really interesting.
Thank you for having me.